known as Big Evil.
Big Evil.
Big Evil.
What did you do to earn it?
Can't say. Statute of time limitations haven't run out on that yet.
Johnson was a notorious leader of the 89 Family Bloods gang. Police have linked him to 20 murders and called him the most cold-blooded in the city.
That's pound for pound, per capita, the Family Swans was probably the hardest set in LA history for as small as they were and for as much work that they put in with Crips surrounding them on almost all sides. So.
Hey there, folks. Today we've got a jaw-dropping story that's straight out of the streets. Get ready to hear about Cleman Big Evil Johnson, a name that's been buzzing around lately for all the wild reasons. Now, hold on to your seats, because here's the kicker. This Bloods leader ain't your regular guy. Nope, not at all. Rumor has it, this dude single-handedly took down more than 50 Crips. Yeah, you heard that right. He's been making waves, leaving everyone wondering, how in the world did he do it?
Do you have the authority to order hits?
If I wanted to, yes.
You see, when it comes to street tales, this one's right up there. People are talking, and here's where it gets interesting. Cleman ain't just some ordinary guy. Nah, he's got something special, something that's got everyone talking. So get ready to dive deep into the world of street legends. This ain't your average story, folks. It's juicy, it's intense, and it's all about how one man changed the game. Sit tight, because we're about to spill all the secrets. Now, by the early 1990s, the neighborhood controlled by the 89 Family Bloods, Big Evil's neighborhood, was among the deadliest in California. In 1993 alone, there were 12 M's in the gang's half-square-mile turf. If all of Los Angeles had such a rate, there would have been 22,512 M's in the city, 4,735 more than in the entire United States last year. Big Evil was not responsible for all the mayhem, of course, but in a city with 100,000 gang members, he stood out. Every gang has a bad A, a shot caller, says LAPD homicide det. Evil was the most violent one I ever knew about, he continued. In total, police attribute more than 20 MEs to Johnson. But even using the lower figure to which Johnson has confessed, that means he MD as many people as Freeway K1lled, William Bonin, or Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. In all likelihood, Evil's relative obscurity has to do with where the slaughter occurred. No celebrities among these victims. No Palos Verdes bankers or Newport Beach realtors. These were innocents just trying to survive, or young gang members in way over their heads. Johnson's defense tried to portray him as a victim of geography. Evil is a product of 89th and Central, said Joe Orr, counsel for Johnson's co-defendant, Michael Fat Rat Allen. With his charm, there's no telling how far he could have gone. He was talented, but his abilities were diverted to the streets. If he had been raised in a different area, this would not have happened. His own mother, however, can't believe it's that simple. After a jury sentenced Johnson to death for Loggins and Berrois Emes, she pondered her personal version of the question that has kept sociologists and criminologists and theologians bickering for decades. What makes a boy go bad? I feel I gave him my all. I just don't know what happened. Sometimes I feel I am to blame, but I did all a mother could do. I don't know why it turned out like this.
But he's known as Big Evil.
Big Evil.
Big Evil.
What did you do to earn it?
Can't say. Statute of time limitations haven't run out on that yet.
Now let's delve in. Well, Big Evil's story started in Los Angeles on October 15, 1967. He grew up in a cozy home with his folks and 4 brothers. They had a good life, camping trips and go-karts and all, but life outside wasn't so rosy. When Big Evil was just a kid of 8, he saw his friend get gunned down in a drive-by shooting. Can you believe it? Witnessing that kind of violence at such a young age, it leaves a mark on a person. Neighbors remember Cleman as a nice kid with a huge smile who loved to help old ladies carry their groceries. He'd pick up the heavy bags, trying not to drop anything, and shuffle up to their doorsteps, peeking through the bags to avoid tripping. He was in the Boy Scouts, earning lots of badges, especially one for survival. Growing up with brothers, he learned how to play rough and stand up for himself when they pushed him around. Sometimes it hurt, but he never let them see him cry. That's the real deal about Kleeman, folks. Well, as he got older, Big Evil found himself in the thick of it, going to middle school in Watts. That's where he ran into those early Crips, the ones who didn't mess around. It was either join them or suffer the consequences. Big Evil wasn't one to back down, so he learned to hold his own in those mean streets. That was a time when South Central's gangs still fought with fists, an occasional tire iron, a rare knife, and street trouble seldom spilled into homes. No one had yet heard the rumblings of an Uzi or AK-47 here. But in 1970, when Kleeman Johnson was 3, an epical event occurred. Less than a mile away, some young men got together and started calling themselves the Crips. Things in South Central would never be the same. Enter the era of families routinely ducking for cover, of sleeping on floors, of burying babies. Soon, the City of Angels was better known as the gang capital of America. In response to the Crips, various groups of young men and boys from rival gangs, the Piru, the Bounty Hunters, the Brims, and the Swans, banded together into a loose confederation that became known as the Bloods. Over time, large, well-armed Crips factions, East Coast Crips, Avalon Gardens Crips, and, directly across Central Avenue, the Kitchen Crips, hemmed in Johnson's neighborhood on 3 sides. That embattled horseshoe engendered the 89 family Bloods. But here's where it gets juicy. Big Evil wasn't content just dodging bullets. He wanted to make a name for himself. So he joined up with the 89 family Bloods and quickly rose through the ranks. Before long, he was calling the shots, leading his crew to do whatever it took to survive. You see, Big Evil's territory was surrounded by rival gangs, and he knew they had to be twice as tough to make it out alive. So he did what he had to do, and that's what earned him that infamous nickname. They say he was twice as savage as anyone else out there, and I believe it. Evil was a great street fighter, says Ricky Parker, Johnson's half-brother. He was good with his hands, his elbows, his head, his feet, his knees, his teeth. He could really get down with his hands, says a rival Kitchen Crip, one street fighter appreciating another. It takes more than a gun to get respect. Yet in this new Wild West, most gang members came to see a gun as survival gear. By the late 1970s, even the best street fighters had turned to firepower. Evil became as unfazed by shooting people as he had been at stomping their teeth in. From the most ruthless family members, Evil created a commando unit of sorts, which he called the 88 Monsters. Though he still lived with and respected his parents, on the street his rage would flow. Defending his outgunned hood became an obsession. Now, during an interview with a source describing his dedication to his actions, Johnson says, "I was the epitome of a gang member," he says. "I was real. A lot of people be putting on a front that they are bad, acting tough. I wasn't acting at all. I was just being me. I love to fight. Win, lose, or draw. I'd rather put down a gun and fight. I fight to win. If you got to bite, bite. If you got to scratch, scratch." People fail to realize it was like a religion. It's not for the fun of it. Some people worshipped Allah or Jesus. I worshipped Bloods. It's like people going to Vietnam and getting programmed to K. They can't stop K'ing, and when they come back, they need help mentally. We couldn't stop K'ing our enemies here either. I was one of them sick individuals. They locked us away, but we needed help mentally. Well, gangbanging was a religion to Johnson to keep his hood alive. He then formed an elite sup-unit within Family Swan called the 88 Monsters. The Monsters would make up for the fact that they were both outnumbered and outgunned by being ruthlessly violent and highly organized. One Family Swan member would even describe Johnson's propensity for violence as, "When his anger goes off, it is something to check out, blood," said a member of the Swans. It was scary. He is getting like a hurricane, and you can't stop him when he wants to jack up someone. You know that he ain't just talking like so many other brothers. If he said it, I would say to myself, someone gonna die tonight. Evil wasn't just fast. He was a street strategist, detectives say. Most gang members are reactionary, heat of passion. You shoot us, we shoot you. Evil was different. Evil would think and plan things out. He built a reputation for beating M-raps and for allegedly calling in several MS from behind bars. He even ordered lots of assassination. Back in 1994, the LAPD's South Bureau Homicide Squad got serious about dealing with this bad guy, Evil. They gathered up a bunch of detectives, FBI folks, and lawyers to form a squad called the 89 Family Task Force. Their mission? Take down Evil once and for all. But here's the catch. They needed people to testify against him, and that was always a tough ask. See, Evil had a knack for slipping through the cracks. He'd get arrested for some serious stuff like M, but somehow he'd always walk free. People started talking, saying he was untouchable. How many times can he get nabbed for M and still walk? Wondered one of his exes. Around the neighborhood, folks whispered that if you snitched on him, you'd end up dead. It was like a scary story everyone knew. In 1994, Gloria Lyons told authorities that she saw an 89 family member, K, a man. She was K1lled. Georgia Denise Jones testified in the same case. She was K1lled. 2 years earlier, Albert Sutton was due to testify in a M trial. He was K1lled. But in developing evidence in the Loggins and Berrois MS, detectives latched onto a witness, Freddie Jelks, who was facing life in prison for a M. During the Loggins-Berrois M trial, Jelks said that Evil had ordered the K-ings. But the task force wasn't giving up. They knew they had to break that myth of Evil being untouchable. And that's where things really start to get interesting. It is not the man's menace that strikes you, though, or the bulging biceps, or his shaved head and piercing eyes. It's Big Evil's engaging smile. He was so nice, says Sanchez, the homicide detective, recalling her first street encounter with the gangster. Sanchez, a 17-year veteran who had heard the fearsome tales about Johnson, was taken aback by his personality. He had this big smile. He joked with us. And that laugh, that Big Evil laugh, it was really evil. I'm happy we finally brought him down. Johnson had a much different reaction. He sat emotionless in the courtroom as the verdict was spread out. He would later say that he had actually celebrated getting the death penalty by drinking Homemade Brewing Chill, according to Johnson jail, had saved his life, even if he was going to be executed in 10 years. Johnson believed it would extend his life longer than if he had remained on the streets, where he believed his time had already run out. But Johnson also didn't care about dying, he would later say. Quote, I'm not really fond of life. It seems like I'm already dead. I've never been one that depends on hope. But Johnson's story would continue even while on death row. First in 2007, his younger brother Timothy would be gunned down while returning home from a party. Timothy, better known as Sinister, was a well-known local rapper and had even managed to catch the attention of Chuck Knight before getting signed to Interscope Records. Johnson would also lose his son, Clement Johnson Jr., while in jail after he was shot and K1lled in Koreatown in 2021. Johnson is currently awaiting trial for 5 capital M charges and gang enhancements. His original M convictions had been overturned in 2011. The police would end up slapping him with even more MS, including a female witness, he allegedly K1lled, in order to prevent from testifying against him. Despite growing up in a stable and loving home, Clayman Johnson would end up becoming one of the most violent gang members in California. History. And despite being boxed in on all sides by much larger enemies, Johnson and family Swan were able to keep their hood alive through unparalleled savagery. As a result, Big Eagle's name rings spell across the city of Los Angeles till this very day. So there you have it, the story of Big Evil, the man who ruled the streets of Los Angeles with an iron fist. Some call him a monster, others a legend. But one thing's for sure, you don't want to cross paths with him if you know what's good for you. Well, now Big Evil is not just facing just one M charge. According to the cops, he was responsible for over 20 keyings. That's a lot, even for a big-time gangster like him. But who knows what's gonna happen next? Maybe Big Evil will walk free, or maybe he'll stay behind bars. Either way, his story is one heck of a wild ride.